Ciao and welcome back to Madquake Creative. This week I would like to speak about how to make a planet in 3D. The process that I am using is slightly different from the usual, as I will start projecting a plane into a sphere. Let's start immediately. This time I would like to approach the model in a slightly different way. We are going to model a planet, but we are starting from a plane. So I select everything, I press X and I delete. I activate the screencast keys, so you can see what I am pressing. Okay. I minimize this a little bit and we are ready to go. So we start creating a plane. Sorry. And we rotate the plane 90 degrees on the y-axis. So RY 90. We can check where the normal points, just checking the face orientation. So the normal points in this direction, and this is where we are going to work. So we enter in edit mode, and we scale in edit mode, so we don't modify the, basically we don't modify the scale that needs to remain 1. So we go into edit mode, and we scale the object on the y-axis, so SY and times 2, so it becomes like 2 squares, one next to the other. Then after that, scale Y2, after that we press Ctrl R and we add a loop cut in the middle. So once we increase the number of polygons, of faces, they all remain square sized. So after that we go into the modifiers and we add a subdivision surface modifier. We keep it simple and we increase the subdivisions to, we can go up to, I would say 5. It doesn't really change too much. We can then decrease in a second moment. After having done that, we can call this collection planet, and this can be Mars, since that we are going to use the maps of Mars. And this is a very good moment to save our project. Remember to save often, also to go back to moments where the model was working well and you don't have to redo from scratch. So we add an empty that we are going to use as pivot point for the rotation and wrapping. And we rotate the empty of 90 degrees on the X and Y axis. So we can go directly in here, X and Y, without selecting the Z, and we write 90 degrees. So nothing seems have changed here, but now the null object is pointing to different directions. Then we go back to our model, to our plane, and we add a bend modifier, a simple deform modifier, and we set it to bend. And the bend object that we are going to select is our empty, that in this case we can call bender. As you can see now, it's the object has already started bending. So we bend off 180 degrees on the Z-axis, and then we simply duplicate it. We bend on the X-axis, and in this case we bend off 360 degrees, and we created a sphere. Now this sphere is the projection of what we created, of the plane that we created before. So once we project a map on this, the map is gonna be wrapped around the sphere. Now I did this because I wanted to show how to do this. You can simply create a sphere and project a map in a spherical projection on your object, and it works exactly the same. We need to shade smooth the object so we don't see the faces. We have still this short, very tiny gap. It doesn't really change too much because at the end we are not going to see it, we're not going to notice it with the map applied. And since that we spoke about the map, we create the material. So we can go directly into the material mode. we enter the shader editor and we create a new material. Remember to select the sphere, and this can be the surface. Usually I say surface underscore matte, so I know that's a material, even if everything that's in here is a material. We can then go, I already prepared the maps. You can download from different websites, like there's the NASA website that has a lot of maps of planets. Basically our projections in this way, where the poles are really stretched and the center is perfectly aligned. I'm gonna put the link of the website where I downloaded these great maps, I have to say, also because you can find the normal maps, and in this case they created also the clouds maps. That's really useful. So we start applying the diffuse on our planet, and we connect the diffuse to the base. As you can see, the map is a little bit distorted because we need to rotate 90 degrees, but we can do it in an easy way. So with the node Wrangler activated, I explained in previous videos that you can activate the node Wrangler going into edit preferences, and in the add-ons you simply type node Wrangler and you activate it. So with the node Wrangler activated, you press Ctrl T and it generates for you texture coordinates and a mapping node. All you have to do now is rotating the map on the right axis. In this case, I know that's the Z axis. You just need to test it. It should be 90 degrees on the Z axis. As you can see, if I rotate the map on this axis, the projection is basically perfect on your planet. Just to make it easier, I am setting up also the light so we can see how it's gonna appear. So I go into the render view, and we don't have a light at the moment, so we generate one. We create a light, and in this case can be a sunlight. Now the sunlight has one thing, it doesn't really matter where you place it. So if I, for example, grab it and I move around, nothing really changes, because for Blender the light is projected from the top. So in order to make it change, I need to go into a different view, like side view, and I need to rotate. And as you can see now, the light is projected in a different way on our model. The other thing is that the background is generating some light, even if it's gray, to lead our object. So we, in the UV editor, in the shader editor, you need to go into the Word tab and you simply change the color to black. And as you can see now, you just see light where there is our sun. You can also grab it and bring it a little bit further. You can change the orientation. For example, in this case, I would put it a little bit lower. So I would move it. I would move it a little bit down, and I would rotate so it leads the side of our planet. The other thing, you can increase the strength. Even 10 can be a good one, probably. It depends on what you want to achieve. You can test your planet in this way, and as you can see, you don't really see anything behind that point. So I think that we are okay for now. The next thing that we need to do is going back to our object. Remember to save as usual. You select again your planet. You make a little bit of space on your nodes, and we need to add a little bit more maps. For example, the normal map, to make it bump a little bit. So with the node Wrangler activated, you can press Option and right click to connect without having to pick this point and connect to this point. And if you want to use a normal map on an object, you need also to go into Vector, Normal Map, and connect the color to the color and the normal to the normal. Now you will see this popping a lot. As you can see here, it can be something that you like and you want, but I always suggest to decrease the strength a little bit. 0.4 probably can be better. Yes, And seen from afar, it doesn't really change too much. In the modifier tab, we just need to apply the modifiers. And to do that, we first need to apply the subdivision surface. At the moment, we have 5 subdivisions. We can go lower if the model doesn't really change too much. This is the level of subdivisions in the viewport. At the moment is 4, and if we take it out, we can see that it's a little bit sharp. So I guess that 5 is the minimum that we should use to have a round planet. So 5 it is. I will go also to 6, but for the purpose of this tutorial, it's not really mandatory, because we need to make something that can be in a second moment also animable. So I apply this modifier, and then I start applying the other 2 modifiers. So now we don't really need the null object anymore, so we can simply delete it. We can also go back to where we were, and we can set the origin to the center of the sphere. So we go into Object, Set Origin, and we set the origin to the center of the mass volume, so the center of this volume of the sphere. Now, if we move this to 0, basically, this is going to be at the center of our universe. And for the planet, we are barely okay. Of course, when you are going to animate it, you will have to activate also ambient occlusion, bloom. I suggest screen space reflection with refraction, and yeah, for the shadows, I would also use high depth width. And yeah, usually for the reflections and refraction, I deactivate half rest trace. It can become a little bit heavier for your computer, but it doesn't really change too much trying. I go back to also my shader editor. I probably should keep it open all the time. And I am going to increase the roughness to 0.7. So, sorry, to 0.7. Yes, so the planet doesn't reflect the light as much as before. Now we have the planet, but we don't have the atmosphere. So we need to create a second sphere. So Shift D with the Mars selected, Shift D, and we press X, and we have a second Mars, a copy of our planet, and we can call this Atmo. We can then remove the material from Atmo, so we can delete these, and we just see the sphere. And we can go back to this view and make a little bit more space, and into edit mode we select everything, and from the 3D cursor we scale it a little bit up, not too much, just that bit to have our planet and the atmosphere in a second layer. Can copy sun. Now we can create a second material for our atmosphere, and we can call it Atmomat. And we can start setting up the atmosphere in the way that we can have an element that reflects the light that's directly facing the sun, but it's invisible on the back of the planet. So let's save our project again. It's better if we can see what we are doing, and we can also keep Mars active. We go into Atmo, and we delete the principal BSDF that we are not gonna use. We start setting up shader diffuse, and we keep it white. We can connect to the material output, but I can keep it connected, and I can add shaders in between. So we want this shader to become a color, and to do so we need to turn the shader into RGB. So the parts that are hit by the light are white, and the rest are black. So we go into Converter, Shader to RGB. You will not really notice too much. We simply I mean, we are using the diffuse as an RGB color, so it doesn't really change too much. Then we include a color ramp, so converter color ramp. And in this way we can actually move our shadow and make it stronger or sharper or more smoothed. Of course, we cannot go over this point because there is no light and so there is no white. These will be used as a factor actually, so I make it sure that you can see what I'm pressing while I have more space to show you what I'm doing. And we connect it to a mix RGB shader. Sorry, color mix RGB. And we are going to use this as a factor for these. The first color is going to be black, so nothing really changes, but the second is going to be a layer weight. So input layer weight, and we can connect, we can start connecting the Fresnel, to be honest. So in this way, or actually we can do the facing, let's see. In this way, no, Fresnel is better, sorry. Facing, yes. In this way, what happens is that the sides of our planet will be white because we're not facing them directly, while whatever is more direct to our camera or our eyes will be darker, so this color. We can also increase these, sorry, decrease, not increasing, to make sure that this happens just on the sides of our planet. And of course, when we hit the shadow part, it disappears completely. The other thing that we can do is adjusting these through the converter. At this point, we have this effect. I played a little bit with the shaders, because once you connect the Fresnel to the second node, you may need to play a little bit with this value. It is really sensitive, so even a very small amount can change everything. I can keep this to 0.11 to test it, but for every different project this can change. Also, if you make the planet a little bit bigger or smaller, the value can need to be changed a little bit. But at this point we just have a mask, so we know where are the darker areas and the brighter areas, but we don't really see the planet behind. So in order to do that, we need to first activate the backface culling. I played a little bit before, and you need to set the blend mode to alpha blend. By default is on opaque. This is because EEVEE is not really able to see transparencies unless you tell it. And the other problem is that you cannot put a transparent element behind another transparent element, because the second one is not going to be visible. In this case, we don't really have big problems because we can go around this issue. The thing is, at the moment, we need to make sure that the black is going to be seen as transparent and the white is our atmosphere. So we add a shader, an emission shader, that is going to be our atmosphere. We can set it to a higher number to make it bright, and we can change the color to like an orangish color. That's going to be like the atmosphere of Mars. And the second shader that we're going to use is a transparent BSDF. So the black parts are going to be transparent and the white parts are going to be light. These are two shaders, so to use them together we need to use a mix shader and not a mix RGB. Remember these, because it can be tricky sometimes. I don't think of what shaders I am using, and I spend hours trying to understand what happened. You connect the transparent and the emission, the transparent on the top and the emission on the bottom, and as you can see, we have now our nice atmosphere around the planet. you can increase the strength of the emission shader, in this case also a lot. And as you can see, this shader shows you light just this shader is visible just in the parts that are lit by our sun. You can also still play a little bit with the layer weight and with the Fresnel, and you can reduce a little bit this. I remember that in my first attempt I used, yes, a value like this, and I increased a lot the emission, like a lot. It was 64,000. No, it was too much probably. This is something that you need to play with once you set this up. 64, 60, it's a little bit too much. I think that I'm gonna keep it to 64 for these model. The other thing, if you see that there are these kind of shaggy edges, you can simply go into the modifiers and you can add a subdivision surface, and this is gonna sort everything out. You can do the same on the planet, so you add a subdivision surface, and of course at the moment we are moving it a little bit fast, but we can sort this out. The thing is, with this you will have to play a little bit around with the settings to make sure that everything works as you want. Another thing that I added to the first model were the clouds. So selecting Mars, I can add some clouds on the top of the diffuse. Remember that the diffuse is under the atmosphere. So I have my cloud maps and I drag it into the scene. The cloud map needs to be connected to the same mapping. It was created to lie on the planet. So seeing that we altered the mapping of the planet, we have to connect the altered mapping node to the cloud. And if we connect the cloud to the surface, you're gonna see just the clouds. What we want is blending them over the diffuse. Of course, we cannot create another sphere with transparency because it wouldn't be visible, as I explained previously. But we can still use color mix RGB, and we can connect the clouds and Mars. In this case, it's mixed at 50%. You can also use the clouds as a factor for the mixing. So you simply move this from Mars, from the color one to factor, and you move this one to the first socket. So the map to the first socket. You can change the color of the clouds to anything fits you. Can be slightly yellowish, seeing that they are intersected by the atmosphere. And yes, basically that's it. If you want, and this is like a bonus tip, you can of course set the background of your universe with stars, and you can generate them procedurally. I am gonna put the link of a previous tutorial where I created that effect for a different scene, but it can be applied to this one perfectly. And the other thing is you can make the clouds rotate while the planet rotates independently. So how do? You duplicate the mapping node and you connect the UV to the vector. But instead of using this mapping for the clouds, you use the second one because you can animate them. So you just need to find out what makes rotate the clouds. In this case, you don't really need to rotate, you need to slide them up. So you can slide the x-axis, can be a good one. The other thing that you need to remember is that the map rotates really fast. So the thing you can do is simply going to the first frame, so frame 0, and go to x0. So this is the starting point, and you press I to animate this parameter. It animates the three of them, but doesn't really change too much. Then you go at the end of your animation. So let's say that the animation is going to last for 250 frames, and you move these to the point you want it to be at the end, like 0.3. You press I again, and then you simply test it. So yes, and they rotate really slow. Actually, they are not really rotating slow, because the other thing that you need to do is changing the type of interpolation. So I stop it. I select the two keyframes. They are already selected because I'm here, but just in case you press A once and you select both of them. Remember not to do this if you have other keyframes. So if you have other parts of your object animated, press select the first one and then shift and you select the second one, and then you simply press T and you go to from Bezier to linear. So now they work perfectly, because they don't start slow and then they speed up. And yes, and that's it. Now what you can do, you can connect the atmosphere with the planet, and you can rotate the planet. You can do whatever you want with this model, and you can also add some other elements, as you can see from the video I made to test this project. If you like the tutorial, subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Also remember to turn on the small bell on the bottom of the video, so you can stay updated with all the contents that I'm gonna release in the next weeks. For today is everything, and I see you next time. Ciao!